This hour of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by my good friends at Advantage Gold. Advantage Gold is a 5-star rated gold company with one-of-a-kind customer service. And when it comes to gold and precious metals, Advantage Gold is the only company I'll work with. Call Advantage Gold today and make sure you let them know that Mark Levin sent you. And now, let's begin.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. We talked about this, but I need to really underscore this. The Democrat Party seeks to imprison Donald Trump. 91 felonies in 4 different districts in 4 different states, local, state, and federal. Not one of which has any merit at all. I don't care what the legal analysts say or any judge says. I've gone through it, and I know the difference. The bottom line is that Joe Biden does not want an opponent in the general election. He doesn't want an opponent. And I want you to think about that. And the criminal law system is trying to deliver for him in Democrat cities, in Democrat states, and of course the Democrats that run the Department of Justice. Which means they don't want you to have a candidate that Joe Biden would win by default. Even if a president can run or a candidate can run when they're in prison, obviously there's just not enough voters who would vote for him. And there wouldn't be time for the Republicans to nominate somebody. I doubt they even have a process for these types of circumstances. Who would? That is what's going on here. This is more than election interference. This is an attempt to destroy our entire electoral process. The Democrat Party apparatchiks, they tried to take Trump off the ballot. It failed. Now they want him not just indicted, not just convicted. They want him in prison. You don't bring 91 felony indictments in multiple cities, in multiple jurisdictions, just because you want indictments. You're trying to put the man in prison. And obviously this is coordinated. Can you prove it, Mark? We can never prove a negative, but I can prove that it's all happening at the same time. I can prove there was communication with the Justice Department and the White House. I can prove there was communication with the DA's office in Fulton County and the White House. I can prove there was communication between the judge in the Manhattan case and the federal judge in Washington in the January 6th case. I can prove a lot. Plus, I don't have to prove anything. They're watching TV, they're reading the news, they know exactly what's going on, and they're responding to it. They hear Joe Biden repeatedly scream about, if Donald Trump wins, we will lose our country. If Donald Trump wins, people will be sent to prison. If Donald Trump wins, it's the end of democracy. The judges hear it, who are appointed by Democrats. The prosecutors, Soros, Democrat prosecutor, they all hear it. And they all have their marching orders. Now, the level of treachery of the Democrat Party cannot be overstated. Let me put it to you this way. You can see the totalitarian positions, the totalitarian actions of Biden, Sanders, Schumer. You saw them with Pelosi. You can see them with all of them. This is not a party that believes in America. This is not a party that believes in our history and our founders. This is not a party that believes in the American citizenry, which they are trying to replace. This is a party that is the umbrella operation of the American Marxist ideology. They sound like Marxists. They promote issues like Marxists. If it walks like a Marxist and it spews hate like a Marxist, it's a Marxist. I don't mean in the pure Marxist sense. That's why I wrote the book, in the American Marxist sense. And now I want to get to this issue, having laid the foundation of Chuck Schumer today. Chuck Schumer is what I call another self-hating Jew. Chuck Schumer is all about power, nothing more, nothing less. He doesn't give a damn about our country. He doesn't give a damn about the debt. He doesn't give a damn about the border. He wants to load up the judiciary with radical leftists. It's all about power because fascists and Marxists, that's all they care about. And that's all Chuck Schumer cares about. Bernie Sanders, the same thing. Throwing out 32-day week. Bernie Sanders is an economic moron, is a financial illiterate, and is a Marxist. He's an ideologue. So you don't really need to know anything to be an ideologue. And then you have others in the Democrat Party. But here's what they have in common. They hate the state of Israel. Chuck Schumer has walked a fine line for a long time, but today he exposed himself once and for all. How can he hate Israel, Mark? I don't know. There are people in Israel who hate Israel, like Ehud Barak. Schumer is in New York, huge Jewish community, but huge Islamist community. He worries about candidates challenging him like AOC. Biden worries about that crowd, too. The Democrat Party has now been devoured by the Islamists and the Marxists, by the Bernie Sanders and the AOCs, by the Rashida Tlaibs, and so forth. That's their new core constituency. Not blue-collar workers, not Italian, German, Irish ethnicities, not the Jewish community, no. It's this. This is who they are. It's ideological now. Because the Democrat Party is a totalitarian party that wants to put its opponents in prison, like Donald Trump. They impeached him twice over nothing. They pressured the appointment of a criminal investigation and a special counsel over a Russia hoax that they, in fact, triggered. They have launched all these criminal investigations and charges. They have attempted to bankrupt him, and they may succeed. This is not a party that wants a fair and square election, a fair and square debate. This is a party that wants to destroy its opponents, destroy them. This party, the Democrat Party, is not only trying to destroy and imprison Donald Trump, they're trying to destroy the prime minister of another country, Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. When you read the filth, the cancer, the poison of a Thomas Friedman, who's a truly sick, self-hating Jew, in my humble opinion, barely literate in his writings, certainly not coherent year to year, decade to decade, a man who embraced communist China and only wished that America were more like the governing system in communist China. I put it in Liberty and Tyranny. It was so outrageous. Kind of backed off. A man who celebrated Vladimir Putin. There's a man who can get things done, but then kind of backed off. Thomas Friedman likes the man with the iron fist, as long as the man of the iron fist is a man who centralizes government, who believes in a radical left agenda. Because Thomas Friedman was raised for a significant part of his young life in a kibbutz in Israel, and the kibbutzes in Israel tend to be very left-wing. And then we have Blinken, a contemptible traitor to the country. So Chuck Schumer goes to the floor of the Senate today and delivers a Stalinist-like speech. He says that the people of Israel must remove this government. The people of Israel must remove Benjamin Netanyahu. They must. And after the war, if they don't, that the United States will shape Middle East policy with or without Israel. Says that Netanyahu must immediately remove the extremists, the radicals in his coalition. These are nothing more than Orthodox Jews who believe in the sanctity of their country, represent small parties. Just another excuse to attack the Jews in Israel, particularly those who actually practice their faith. Never before that I'm aware of has there been an effort to remove a duly elected prime minister or president of an ally by any administration in the United States. We've had administrations attacked for taking out presidents of, for instance, South Vietnam at the time, Diem. Maybe overthrowing governments here and there in Central and South America that were our enemies. But we've never had an administration in our own country. We've never had a political party in our own country committed to the destruction and the coup of a duly elected prime minister in a democratic country before. An ally. As a friend of mine wrote me earlier today, it pays to be an enemy of the United States under this administration, not an ally. So Schumer goes to the floor of the Senate, tells the Israeli people who they should vote for, tells the Israeli people what kind of government they should have, tells the Israeli people there must be a two-state solution, tells the Israeli people what to do and how to do it. Bernie Sanders has been going around saying this is Netanyahu's war. We need to cut them off. Well, they're succeeding. I got word today from the ground level, not the PMs, on the ground level. They're having to ration bombs in Israel now, Mr. Producer. Even though this administration knows what's going on in the north with Hezbollah and a potential war there, Israel's running out of key weapons now. And the Biden administration is happy with it. That's why they're tying any funding of Israel with all sorts of other things that they know Republicans don't support. Biden is starving Israel of weapons right now. Biden has issued executive orders attacking individuals in Judea and Samaria. And today, our State Department put sanctions on 2 major farmers in that part of Israel to try and prevent them from making money, to try and prevent the farmers who grow things and sell things from growing things and selling things. Why? Because they want their land to be given to the terrorists. Meanwhile, case after case of Palestinian terrorists murdering Jews and others in Jerusalem, in Judea and Samaria, and elsewhere. There's no sanctions placed on them. There's not even any reporting done in the United States on this. They want you to believe it's all one way. And we've already told you how they have lied about the statistics, the casualties in Gaza. And they keep lying about it. Because Joe Biden doesn't give a crap about the casualties in Gaza any more than he gives a crap about the casualties on our southern border from fentanyl, from gangs. He doesn't give a crap about the slavery of women and children into sex on the southern border. He doesn't do a damn thing about it. Doesn't give a crap about crime in our inner cities. Doesn't even talk about it. But he's worried, you see, about what's going on with the lives of Gazans. So he's forced to lie, to push a projection. When we come back, you'll get to hear some of this, and I personally want to respond directly to Chuck Schumer. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Our once mighty dollars under siege from runaway inflation. For those still working, your paychecks buy less while costs for gas, food, cars, utilities skyrocket thanks to inflation. That's why I'm urging all my listeners to register for the upcoming Gold and Silver Summit hosted by our friends at Advantage Gold. It's a fantastic seminar. They'll teach you how to take steps to help guard your wealth from inflation using asset diversification into physical precious metals. Gold and silver hold intrinsic value that should remain untouched by government manipulation. Folks, don't wait for the Fed's reckless policies to completely devalue the dollar and steal your life savings. Call now while free registration is open. I'm telling you, this is a fantastic seminar. Call 800-900-8000 right now. The Gold and Silver Summit could provide the vital insights we need to protect our families. 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Always consult your financial and tax professionals.
5 months into this conflict, it is clear that Israelis need to take stock of the situation and ask, must we change course? At this critical juncture, I believe a new election is the only way to allow for a healthy and open decision-making process about the future of Israel. At a time when so many Israelis have lost their confidence in the vision and direction of their government. I also believe a majority of the Israeli public will recognize the need for change, and I believe that holding a new election, once the war starts to wind down, would give Israelis an opportunity to express their vision for the post-war future. Of course, the United States cannot dictate the outcome of an election, nor should we try. That is for the Israeli public to decide. A public that I believe understands better than anybody that Israel cannot hope to succeed as a pariah opposed by the rest of the world. As a democracy, Israel has the right to choose its own leaders, and we should let the chips fall where they may. But the important thing is that Israelis are given a choice. There needs to be a fresh debate about the future of Israel after October 7th.
So stop. He's calling for new elections in Israel to overthrow the existing government. He's telling the Israelis who they ought to vote for. He's telling the Israelis that when this war is over, the very geography, culture, system, democratic system in Israel needs to be re-examined. That it is a pariah in the world if it doesn't do the things that Chuck Schumer demands it does. But of course, it's up to the Israeli people. This is pretty damn unbelievable. Pretty damn unbelievable. I've got more. We'll be right back. Attention, fellow Americans. Mark Levin here with a warning and a solution. I feel like our country's being destroyed by out-of-control spending and debt thanks to Biden and the American Marxists. And your hard-earned savings and retirement could be at risk from their socialist schemes. That's why you should consider Advantage Gold, the best of the best, a U.S.-based company that specializes in helping everyday Americans protect their wealth. They have a simple solution to help you even potentially grow your wealth despite the attacks from Washington. I urge you to register for their upcoming Gold and Silver Summit. It's fabulous. A free online event where you'll learn tips to help safeguard your finances by diversifying into physical precious metals. Call 800-900-8000. Call them right now to sign up securely for this pivotal summit. It is crucial. Tell them Mark Levin sent you for a special bonus. Call 800-900-8000 right now. Performance may vary. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
Mark Levin, America's passionately cerebral voice. Talk with that voice now. 877-381-3811.
I believe in his heart he has his highest priority is the security of Israel. However, I also believe Prime Minister Netanyahu has lost his way by allowing his political survival to take the precedence over the best interests of Israel. He has put himself in coalition with far-right extremists like Ministers Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, and as a result, he has been too willing to tolerate the civilian toll in Gaza, which is pushing support for Israel worldwide to historic lows. Israel cannot survive if it becomes a pariah. Prime Minister Netanyahu has also weakened Israel's political and moral fabric through his attempts to co-opt the judiciary.
So let's stop here. Listen to this. Now let me tell you who this speech is intended for. This speech is intended for really two audiences. No, not in America. Because you have to admit, Biden, Blinken, Sanders, now Schumer, they've tied up the river to the sea crowd, the Islamists, the exterminate the Jews crowd. They're all Democrats. They're all for the Democrats. So they've got that. And they have now drawn an indelible line between the Republican Party, which supports Israel, and the Democrat Party, which supports Hamas and Iran. And is funding Iran, as I'll get to in a moment, even now. It's putting more sanctions on Israel today while it's funding Iran today with another $10 billion. There's no mistaking what's taken place. The Democrat Party is now formally in the camp of Hamas. The media are now formally in the camp of Hamas. They're more than happy to use their statistics. In fact, they're happy to use their video and their photographs. Even though they know it's a lie, they know now, because we had one of the great statisticians in America explain that the numbers are a lie. But they don't care. Now, I want to say this. What would we say if Netanyahu was talking about the American people need to overthrow their government? The American people need to demand a new election. The American people need to throw this one out and that one out of the Knesset, which would be our Congress. And these proposals by the Democrats on how to destroy our Supreme Court and our judicial system, and then he goes on and on and on. Would we tolerate that from Netanyahu? Would we tolerate that from any leader of anywhere around the world? In this speech, Chuck Schumer is an English version of Vladimir Putin, except worse. Israel's a democracy. Almost 80% of the people of Israel in recent surveys support the direction that the government's taking with Hamas on the phony two-state solution issue and so forth and so on. And so they try and create this image that it's Netanyahu. These are the people of Israel. And Chuck Schumer is saying, I know better. And of course, Chuck Schumer is nothing more than an apparatchik for Biden and the Democrat Party. Power, 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 power. And you heard what he said. He's threatening Israel. He's threatening the people of Israel. You do what I say, or we are going to have to examine what we want Israel to look like. That's what he said in so many words. We will determine what a sovereign country looks like. We will determine the government of the sovereign country. We will determine the borders of the sovereign country. Schumer is a fascist. This is totalitarianism. Biden is a fascist. This is totalitarianism. Bernie Sanders is a fascist. And there are overlaps between Marxism and fascism, but we don't need to discuss that tonight. Bernie Sanders is a fascist, trying to force Israel to bow to their demands. And I'm telling you tonight, from my contacts in Israel, that they are now rationing bombs, even though Hezbollah is poised to attack. At the same time, that Biden, through his policies and directly, has flooded over $100 billion into the Iranian regime, and as a result, their terrorist surrogates and Hamas, the Houthis, Hezbollah, and the PLO. He says it's time. It's time for the Israelis to have a course correction. And I'm thinking, course correction? That's what we're trying to do in our country when you're trying to imprison our candidate. We want a course correction too. But can you imagine a foreign leader, a Netanyahu or whomever, telling Joe Biden who should be in his cabinet? You got to get rid of this Buttigieg. You got to get rid of Blinken. Or we're going to help work on reorganizing your governor, what the United States should look like. The Democrats, they always attack imperialist America, colonialist America. Oh, those early white supremacist founders of America. Who are the imperialists and the colonialists today? Sanders, Biden, Schumer, Blinken. That's who. It's really stunning. Cut 4, Mr. Producer, go.
Nobody expects Prime Minister Netanyahu to do the things that must be done to break the cycle of violence, to preserve
the
Israel's...
cycle of violence. It's Israel's fault. It's Netanyahu's fault. America, are you listening to it? It's Israel's fault. It's Netanyahu. This is the senior senator from New York, where most of America's Jews live, who is embracing Hamas in Iran. Netanyahu, the government of Israel, they've created the cycle of violence. Go ahead.
On the world stage and to work towards a two-state solution.
They don't want a two-state solution. The last survey, over 75% of Israelis said no. No, no, no. And so Biden's going around saying, well, we'll impose it on them. This failed prime minister, this reprobate, who's now the foreign minister in the UK, says Israel doesn't get to decide whether there's a Palestinian state or not. America. I want you to Google something. When the British drew the lines after the Ottoman Empire, when they drew the lines in the Middle East, they created this two states. That is, modern day states. Because, of course, the Jews were there long before Britain even existed. But let me go on. The other state was Jordan. It was Jordan. Jordan. So the Jordanians and the self-named Palestinians, they didn't want two states. They wanted the whole damn thing. That's what's been going on. So Chuck Schumer insists that a two-state solution will bring peace. They ignore what's going on in Gaza. They ignore what Hamas says in its mission statements. Iran didn't give a damn about a two-state solution. They want to roll over Israel, and they want to roll over everybody who opposes them. This isn't about two-state solution, two geographic areas. They want to obliterate all opposition, starting with the Jews, who are right there in the Middle East. They tell us this. But Chuck Schumer doesn't give a crap. So the Democrat Party, if you are Jewish and you vote Democrat, you are certifiably insane. By the way, if you're any American and you vote Democrat, you're certifiably insane as far as I'm concerned. Either that or you're a host on Comedy Central, like Leibowitz, who changed his name. Leibowitz. You know who Leibowitz is, right, Mr. Producer? Jon Stewart. Cut 5, go.
Hamas and the Palestinians who support and tolerate their evil ways, radical right-wing Israelis.
Now, see, he's not a faithful Jew. So anybody who's an Orthodox Jew is a radical right-wing Israel. I told you this. These are self-hating Jews who hate Jews of faith. Who hate Jews of faith. They've run the New York Times for God knows how long. And now They run the Democrat side of the United States Senate. Go ahead.
Government and society, President Abbas, Prime Minister Netanyahu. These are the four obstacles to peace.
So Netanyahu is the obstacle to peace. You know, ladies and gentlemen, Schumer had to coordinate this speech with Biden, with Blinken, with the White House. He's a coward. He doesn't do things one-off. Now, others are trying to, I want nothing to do with that. He's willing to take the heat because he figures he'll get elected no matter what unless AOC challenges it. But I want to give credit to Mitch McConnell. Credit where credit is due. Credit where credit is due. He immediately went to the floor of the Senate. He'd never heard anything like this before in his career, ever. And here's what he said. Cut 7, go.
It is grotesque and hypocritical for Americans who hyperventilate about foreign interference in our own democracy to call for the removal of a democratically elected leader of Israel. This is unprecedented. We should not treat fellow democracies this way at all. Things that upset left-wing activists are not of Prime Minister's policies. There is Israel's policies. Make no mistake, the Democratic Party doesn't have an anti-Bibi problem. It has an anti-Israel problem. Israel is not a colony of America whose leaders serve at the pleasure of the party in power in Washington. Only Israel's citizens should have a say in who runs their government. This is the very definition of democracy and sovereignty. Either we respect their decisions or we disrespect their democracy.
Mm-hmm. And think about how they disrespect our republic, ladies and gentlemen. The border. Think about it. Massive spending, inflation. How they're trying to imprison Donald. They want to in the paradise that is the Schumer world, the Biden world, and the world of hell. Donald Trump would be imprisoned today, and Joe Biden would be running against nobody. Netanyahu would be removed as Prime Minister of Israel, replaced with an Ehud Barak type or a Lapid, who will serve at the bended knee of the Biden administration and divide up his country and expose the people of Israel to permanent extermination. That's what the Biden administration is seeking right now. One-party rule in America and one-party rule outside of America, where they absolutely control everything that happens in the state of Israel. You don't hear Chuck Schumer glowing on the floor of the Senate condemning Biden or his administration for pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into Iran. You don't hear a damn thing about it. You don't hear Chuck Schumer going to the floor of the Senate condemning today widespread anti-Semitism. Oh, he'll talk about it in passing and so forth. But you don't hear him say, what's the Biden administration doing about it? You don't hear Chuck Schumer go to the floor of the Senate and explain what this second state will look like and how it can be ensured it won't be a terrorist state, because it will be a terrorist state. You don't hear Chuck Schumer go to the Senate floor and say, well, we need a course correction in America. Joe Biden ought to change up his cabinet. In fact, Joe Biden ought to resign. He's mentally unstable. He's cost tens of thousands of people their lives over on the southern border. We have slavery like we haven't seen since the end of the Civil War. It's time for a course correction, Biden. You don't hear him say that, the jackass. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
My fellow Americans, we're living in very perilous economic times. Washington seems determined to bankrupt our nation with endless stimulus spending. As they devalue our dollar, hard-working Americans like you could lose everything. That's why I urge you strongly, Register for the upcoming Gold and Silver Summit hosted by our friends at Advantage Gold. They'll teach you how to help guard your wealth using asset diversification into physical precious metals. Gold and silver can offer a defense against the dollar's devaluation, and the experts at Advantage Gold will explain how you can convert some of your savings into precious metals that can protect and potentially grow your wealth. With currency debasement from Washington and global uncertainty on the rise, gold and silver diversification can offer you some stability. Call 800-900-8000 right now to sign up. 800-900-8000 now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. These speeches, like Schumer's and Biden's, they'll be memorialized for thousands of years. They'll be remembered. How do you think he'll be remembered? This also gives motivation, impetus to our enemies all over the world to overthrow governments, to use economic pressure, to use whatever they have to do to overthrow duly elected governments. In this, how is Biden any different than Putin? And now they're quietly, secretly withholding weaponry, because I'm told they're rationing bombs over there. And all this is giving power to Iran. All this while Biden funds Iran, arms Iran. They kill 3 of our people through their surrogates, and we don't touch Iran. But Netanyahu has to go because he's the only one standing up to Iran. He's it. He's the only one. Here's Elise Stefanik today. Cut 8, go.
Israel is not only fighting for its right to exist, it's fighting for the rights of Jewish people everywhere. And instead of meddling in elections of a sovereign nation, Chuck Schumer should follow House Republicans' lead in supporting our ally in their darkest hour. The obstacle to peace is Democrat leader Chuck Schumer, who has refused to pass the Israeli aid package, which supports our ally Israel as they fight Iranian-backed Hamas and Hezbollah terrorists. This same Israeli aid package that Joe Biden issued an unprecedented veto threat for. House Republicans proudly stand with Israel. We are proud to host Ambassador Herzog here today, and we want to continue to stand up and make sure that we are crystal clear. Chuck Schumer does not stand with Israel. House Republicans do.
I want to make it clear here, ladies and gentlemen, if the Democrats win the next election, Biden, and they hold the Senate, and take the House, Israel may no longer exist as Israel. America may no longer exist as America. These people are totalitarians. They can throw the word democracy around as much as communist China throws the word reform around. They're destroying our justice system. They're destroying our sovereignty on our border. They're destroying our currency. They are destroying our ally, Israel, while pretending to support it. They're going to break up Israel and destroy Israel? I mean, these are totalitarians. These are tyrants. Chuck Schumer is a fascist. He gave the speech of a fascist. That is a fascist speech. It's a fascist speech. Let me just say this. Dan Bongino, who in many ways is like a brother to me, lost his mother last night. And so we pray for his family and our sincerest sorrow to Dan and the family. It's a very, very sad thing. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Exactly how has Joe Biden promoted democracy in America? Exactly how has Joe Biden defended democracy in America? When he issues fiats, executive orders, when his party tries to overturn elections, they're the ones, by changing our election rules all over the country. They sent out their slip and fall ambulance chasing lawyers from sea to shining sea. How do they promote democracy when they're trying to change citizenship in this country? Change the voting lines in this country, or the voting ranks, I should say. How do they promote it? How? Chuck Schumer's there trashing the Supreme Court justices. Names two of them. Chuck Schumer, with Biden, was involved in really the regularization of the application of the filibuster against judicial nominees. What exactly has Joe Biden done to promote democracy? I can tell you what he's done to promote tyranny. Same with Schumer. These are not individuals who believe in constitutional government. These are not individuals who believe in the greatness of America. They've gotten to where they are by trashing our country. They've gotten to where they are by appeasing, embracing the reprobates, among others. They don't believe in our system. Even now, they're trashing Clarence Thomas, Sam Alito, Neil Gorsuch, among others. Threatening our justices. Destroying our justice system. Destroying it. How do these people believe in democracy? Are we freer today than we were 3 years ago? Of course not. Hiring 87,000 IRS agents? They're not hiring them as a jobs program. They're hiring them to come against you and me. Democracy, he says. He can say whatever he wants. These people are totalitarians. The speech that Schumer gave will be remembered for 1,000 years or more. It'll be remembered in 1,000 years or more because it's the most Stalinist / Mussolini-like speech in modern American history. Well, it's in competition with the State of the Union speech, but same totalitarian mindset. And so you're going to see all the propagandists on MSNBC and CNN and the New York Slimes and the rest of them regurgitate what Schumer says. Because they don't believe in democracy on the Morning Joe or anybody else on that network. They don't believe on it on CNN. What exactly did Israel do, Mr. Producer, to deserve this? I ask you, America, what exactly did this little country do with a relative handful of people, even by standards in the Middle East? What exactly did they do to deserve this kind of attack from their former ally, the United States of America? They're now being investigated in the U.S. for war crimes. They're running short on ammunition. The Biden administration is seeking to overthrow the duly elected government, now with support from Schumer and others. They're giving aid and comfort the Islamo-Nazi regime in Tehran and all these terrorist operations, the PLO, Hamas. As soon as they came in, the Houthis, they took them off the terrorism list. Why? What exactly did Netanyahu do that offends these people? Two things. He stands in the way of this two-state solution. You heard what Schumer said. We want him out because we want two states, and he's saying no. Why else? Because in 2015, he gave a speech at the invitation of Bonnier to a joint session of Congress. I was there in the peanut gallery. He gave a speech against allowing Iran to get nuclear weapons, which was a position that countered the Obama-Biden position. Obama never forgave him. Obama insisted that Netanyahu and their government capitulate to Iran, appease. They insisted that Israel agree that Iran could get nuclear weapons in a decade. Netanyahu said no, and he fought it. He became a pariah, a persona non grata. He spoke to the American people. He went over Obama's head. He went over Biden's head. And they never forgave him. Chuck Schumer was in the Senate. He voted against the Iran deal. But to show you what a sleazeball this man is, he actually worked to get it passed behind the scenes in the shadows. He worked to get it passed in the shadows. Well, he voted against it. And he ensured that it would pass. By the way, you know who opposed it? I think the one Democrat who opposed it, Robert Menendez, Mr. Producer. And apparently they want to send him to prison, too. I'm not saying he's a crook or not. I'm just saying they want to send him to prison, too. They never send the leftists to prison, do they? They can spend campaign money wildly on trips, on lovers, on security. They can do all that they want. They're never charged with anything. It's amazing, isn't it? Just like their militia in Portland during 2020 attacking a federal courthouse. Just like their militia attacking the White House where Donald Trump was. Just like their militia rioting in the streets. But none of those were an insurrection. No. So the official position of the Democrat Party is to support the Islamo-Nazi regime in Tehran, to support the Hamas Nazis in Gaza, to support Arafat's PLO, to support Hezbollah, to organize the Arab country against Israel, to organize the Europeans with the moron Cameron taking the lead against Israel, to organize the UN against Israel, to give speeches trashing Benjamin Netanyahu, the one man who stands between Iran and us, by the way. There are no others. And I don't think it's a coincidence that this guy Gantz comes over to the United States, kisses Kamala Harris, her ass, kisses the ring of Schumer, kisses the ring of all the reprobates, all the malcontents in the Democrat Party and elsewhere, goes back and a week later, off with Netanyahu's head. They want Gantz to be the prime minister. Why? Because he's a lousy general. That's why. And Gantz wants to be the prime minister. And that's all that counts for Gantz. They're not used to a Menachem Begin. They're not used to a Netanyahu who actually want to protect their people. They were attacked. And as a consequence, they're under attack by the United States. Let me check that. By the Democrat Party. The vast majority of Americans, we've been polled over and over again, support Israel. The vast majority of Democrats, certainly in their leadership, do not support Israel. I want you to think about this, because this shows you their heart and their lack of soul. They don't care that the border's open and Americans are being slaughtered. They don't care that the border's open and women and children are being sold into sex slavery. They don't care. Or they do something about it. Or they do something about it. They don't care that our inner cities are overwhelmed with illegal aliens, taking much needed resources from our people, our citizens in these cities, and giving them to illegal aliens, foreigners who just show up. Now it's official. There's a piece in the Financial Times now, which is underscoring the point that I just made about Israel's weapons. And this is now coming from the Financial Times, not exactly a right-wing paper. Israel is conserving ammunition in case of war with Hezbollah. They don't have enough ammunition. They don't have enough bombs. So they want to wipe out what's left of Hamas and their leadership. They're being told they must not. They have to deal with Hezbollah because Iran has hyped up Hezbollah. They're firing hundreds of missiles a day into these communities. And Iran is doing this because they don't want anyone to focus on their nuclear weapon program. And then I would add this to you. What exactly is Biden doing to stop Iran from getting nukes? Exactly nothing. That's not true. He's doing the opposite. He's funding their nuclear program. He's funding it. As I said, Schumer doesn't go to the Senate floor and say, I'm warning this administration, stop funding Iran's war effort. Stop funding Iran's nuclear development effort. Stop funding Iran's terrorism. That jackass, that SOB Schumer, he doesn't get his sorry ass to the Senate floor and talk about that. No, it's just easier to take a shot at Netanyahu. It's just easier. Like that punk, Thomas Friedman at the New York Slimes. Stupid, barely literate individual who has backed Communist China in the past, who has backed Putin in the past. Oh, sorry, I changed my mind. He's been in an obsession against Netanyahu for 20 years because he's sick. That whole newspaper is sick, by the way, as a footnote. This Maggie Haberman. It's anti-Trump, and I hear from Trump, and I hear... Maggie, are you in love with Donald Trump? You're obsessed with him. You're also an a-hole, by the way. This is our media. This is our media. You know what? Let me tell you something. After that speech, Chuck Schumer would be welcome in Gaza. He'd be welcome by Hezbollah. He would be unwelcome in Jerusalem. He'd be unwelcome in Judea and Samaria. So Chuck Schumer would be celebrated. Perhaps he's being celebrated tonight. You know what? He is being celebrated tonight. By Iran, by Hamas, by the Houthis, by the PLO, and by Hezbollah. What do you think about that, New York? What do you think about my brothers and sisters, the Jews in New York? What do you think about that? Schumer's being celebrated by the enemy of this country, while the Israelis are stunned and disgusted. And all this is backfiring. They're trying to divide Netanyahu from the people of Israel because the people of Israel want nothing to do with Biden, Schumer, Sanders. They're about survivability, and they're about eliminating these enemies once and for all. That's what they're about. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Pure Talk believes in American values and that free should mean exactly that, free. Switch to Pure Talk today and get a free Samsung 5G smartphone. No 4-line requirement, no activation fees, just a Samsung that's built to last with a rugged screen, quick charging battery, and top-tier data security. Qualifying plans start at just $35 a month for unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot. Pure Talk will connect you to the most dependable 5G network in America for half the price of Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile. The average family saves almost $1,000 a year. So let Pure Talk's expert U.S. customer service team help you make the switch today. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin, Levin, and claim your eligibility for your free brand new Samsung 5G smartphone and start saving on wireless today. Again, go to puretalk.com/Levin to switch to my cell phone company, Pure Talk. You know, I smelled these rats early on. I had people writing me, Mark, hasn't Biden been great? I smelled this two-front war. I've talked about it here on Blaze. I've talked about it on Fox. Two-front war, the military battle, and the battle with the Democrats here at home. This is a huge problem for us. Right here in the United States, this river to the sea crowd hates America. They hate America, pouring into the streets. We have Islamists and Marxists. In many cases, it's the same people as the 2020 crowd, the CRT crowd, the DEI crowd, the ESG crowd, the whole alphabet soup. This is the AOC crowd, the Tlaib crowd, the Omar crowd. This is a Democrat Party that has built into its core these hate American voters. And the media have as well. They bring these people on TV. They hire them as reporters and hosts. And so they're trying to mainstream what is not mainstream in America. This is why the same people who are demanding that Donald Trump go to prison here in America, the same people who are demanding that Donald Trump should not have been on the ballot, the same people who are celebrating prosecutors and judges who are trying to get him convicted before the election's over, the same people who claim that the injustices that they are unleashing are lawful, are the same people who believe that they can overthrow a duly elected government overseas in Israel. They hate Trump and they hate Netanyahu. They hate America and they hate Israel. They want to fundamentally transform America, and they are. And they want to fundamentally transform Israel, because Israel's our biggest supporter. I've told you many, many times, if you hate America, you hate Israel. If you hate Israel, you hate America. If you love one or the other, you love America. No question. The Democrat Party is a very dangerous party. I wrote a whole damn book on it. The Democrat Party hates America. I cover these issues of anti-Semitism. I cover these issues of anti-black, anti-Hispanic racism, anti-Asian racism, anti-white racism. I covered it all. And you know what's interesting? The career of Joe Biden in Washington spans it. It spans the Democrat Party and its horrendous treatment of blacks, to now the Democrat Party and its racism of whites. It's whatever works. The Democrat Party has always been anti-Semitic, especially under Franklin Roosevelt, but Franklin Roosevelt was an economic socialist. And so people who pray to government, I did a whole show on this 2 weeks ago, that Politico lady, people who believe our rights come from government, people who believe that Congress, in the right hands, their hands, is the answer. And this idea about God and natural rights and natural law, which just happened to be in our founding document, that they're so ridiculous. They're the ones who support the river to the sea crowd. They're the ones who are the Marxists and the Islamists. Yes, all Islamists aren't Muslim, and all Muslims aren't Islamists. They're the people who believe the border should be open, whatever the cost, not to them, but to everybody else. And they're the ones who believe that the Palestinian terrorists are the oppressed, because Israel's fighting back, trying to protect itself. Israel didn't start this war. Israel hasn't started any of these wars. It's trying to survive. The word quisling has gone down in history. Backstabber has gone down in history. Turncoat has gone down in history. And those are the phrases and words that apply to Chuck Schumer. We've invited Schumer on this program. I've been in New York on WABC for over 20 years. I was on WABC when it was owned by the ABC radio networks. I was on WABC when it was owned by Citadel. I'm on WABC now, which is owned by Apple. 3 or 4 iterations of ownership. And not once would Chuck Schumer come on their show. Not once. Can't say I blame him. He'd rather go to his friendly Hamas-supporting media. But never forget it. Schumer and the Democrat Party, when push comes to shove, they stand for the terrorists. And that is particularly sickening given his ethnicity and the fact that we were hit on a 9/11 in a big way in New York. Pure Talk believes in American values and that free should mean exactly that, free. Switch to Pure Talk today and get a free Samsung 5G smartphone. No 4-line requirement, no activation fees, just a Samsung that's built to last with a rugged screen, quick charging battery, and top-tier data security. Qualifying plans start at just $35 a month for unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot. Pure Talk will connect you to the most dependable 5G network in America for half the price of Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile. The average family saves almost $1,000 a year. So let Pure Talk's expert U.S. customer service team help you make the switch today. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin, Levin, and claim your eligibility for your free brand new Samsung 5G smartphone and start saving on wireless today. Again, go to puretalk.com/Levin to switch to my cell phone company, Pure Talk.
Mark Levin, the cure for the common liberal. Talk to Mark now at 877-381-3811.
Over at Breitbart, Biden slaps more sanctions on Israel while giving $10 billion sanctions waiver to Iran. Let me talk about this. Schumer talks about a course correction. We have a process for a course correction in the middle of a presidency. It's called impeachment. Donald Trump was impeached by two phony efforts by the Democrats in the House, involving his call with Zelensky, which was perfectly fine. Remember, they wanted to get him over Russia. They actually planted the stories, pushed by the Biden apparatchiks and the Obama apparatchiks and the Obama-Biden administration, pushed by their media Democrats. There was nothing there, so they had to genuflect. And what do they do? A phone call. Trump releases the transcript. There's nothing here. Oh, look at this sentence. Now, I'm not going to beat a dead horse here. I'm just making a point. And then the second impeachment is even more preposterous, accusing him of an insurrection. Not one hearing held, not one actual fact presented. They vote on it in the House very quickly with about 10 Republicans like Dizzy Lizzy who join in. They send it to the Senate. Trump's already at Mar-a-Lago, a private citizen, and there's a trial that lasts about 3 seconds. And of course, in that trial, Donald Trump is found not guilty. Not charged with an insurrection, not charged with sedition, not charged with inciting violence, when they could bring charges. All of that. Well, let me tell you about Joe Biden. Joe Biden should be impeached for a number of reasons. Number one, he has not taken care that our laws are upheld and executed. That is a constitutional requirement when you take the oath to become president of the United States. Number two, he's violated our immigration laws, usurped them, undermined them, and has done so intentionally. Number three, in doing so, he's caused grave damage to our country, the people of our country, because impeachment's about a quote-unquote political crime. People have died. People have been raped. There's been enormous amount of property damage. Our towns and our cities are overflowing. They can't even take care of their own people. Number three, I've lost count already. He's defied 2 Supreme Court rulings, not 1, 2, and he's done so brazenly and knowingly. Oh, Mr. Democracy, yes. Now, those are just some of them. Here's another one. He has conveyed billions of dollars of American tax dollars to Iran to build nuclear weapons because he knows, listen, he knows what they're going to do. They're building nuclear weapons. They're building missiles. They're funding terrorism. They've sent agents to the United States to kill some of our own people. And he's funding them. He knows they have money to use. And I don't want to hear any more bureaucratic CPA crap. Well, it's in this account, not again. We're talking about terrorists. Obviously, it frees up other money. They want the money. They're not worried about feeding their people, for God's sakes. They're a war machine. They're a terrorism machine. They don't care about a 2-state solution either. Jesus. For these reasons and more, these are impeachable offenses. I know more about the Constitution, these elements, than anybody else on radio, anybody else on TV, and virtually anybody else on the planet. I don't care if they're law professors. I don't care if they're judges. This is what I do. This is what I study, day in and day out, day in and day out, day in and day out. These are high crimes and misdemeanors. This is exactly what the framers of your Constitution intended. Chuck Schumer just gave them an opportunity. He says we need a course correction. Republicans should go to the floor of the House and the Senate. He's right. We need a course correction. And impeachment is the course correction. Look, I don't care if some of these so-called conservatives who wouldn't vote to impeach Mayorkas give some cockamamie argument about it, and that's all it is. This isn't about policy disputes. This is about reality, what's going on in our country as a result of the failures of the Biden administration to enforce the Constitution, I should say uphold it, and enforce the laws that are passed. It's not a policy debate. These aren't white papers at a think tank. People are dying. People are being maimed. Communities are being ruined. The Iranians really are building nuclear weapons, now with our money. He really is funding terrorists. In other words, the safety, security of the United States of America is being fundamentally transformed. It's being unraveled piece by piece. And some Republicans will tell you, well, that's what elections are. No, there's no time. He's trying to throw his opponent in prison. When are these people going to wake the hell up? Biden slaps more sanctions on Israel while giving $10 billion sanctions waiver to Iran. Headline Breitbart, one of the great sites. President Joe Biden's administration slapped more sanctions on Israelis over so-called extremist settler violence. Now that's an irony. They're facing terrorists. No sanctions have been slapped on the Hamas Palestinian terrorists. And we're funding Iran. But they slapped sanctions on Israelis, including on 2 outposts in the West Bank, that is Judea and Samaria, marking the first sanctions on Israel relating to a specific area. So they're targeting Jews in areas where Biden, Blinken, and Schumer want to turn it over to the Palestinians. In other words, they're trying to ruin their lives, ruin their livelihood, ruin their farms, sanctioning them. Now, obviously, where does Biden have the power to do these things? In another country. The 3 settlers sanctioned, let's see, trying to read this. As with 4 Israeli individuals, so that's 3 today, previously sanctioned, none of the affected individuals has been convicted of any crime in Israel. Accusations of quote-unquote settler violence are often created by left-wing organizations here in America who feed reports to the State Department. And this great piece is written by the great Joel Pollack, by the way. Palestinians are not sanctioned for ongoing terror attacks against Israelis in the same exact geographic areas. What do you think of that, Mr. Producer? I told you Joe Biden's the biggest anti-Semite to ever be in the Oval Office. People don't believe me. No, it's just for votes. No, it's ideological, too. It's ideological, too. The reporter wrote a piece a few years back where one of Biden's longtime staffers did an interview. And that staffer said, Joe, when it comes to Israel, he doesn't really support Israel. He just wants the money and the votes. Now that sounds like Joe. Racist, bigoted, anti-Semitic Joe. You know, I'd love to have a seminar with all the hosts and commentators on ESPN. I really would. By the way, I want to salute my man Stephen A. After the State of the Union, I hadn't seen this. He goes on a rant. He says, what do you mean he has energy and everything? He walks 2 feet, does Stephen A., then walks 20 feet, comes back and says, so there, I have energy? And his point is well taken, of course. Says he won't even finish 4 years. Talking about all the other ESPN types who aren't in the tank for Biden and the left. I'd be happy to debate 10-1. If we have some kind of clock, I'll take on 10 of the smartest against me. That's all. 10 of the smartest against me. And I'll even let them throw in LeBron James. What do you think of that, Mr. Producer? The sanctions also came a day after the Biden administration renewed a sanctions waiver on Iran that will allow the regime to gain access to up to $10 billion in access. The waiver is aimed at encouraging diplomacy. Right, simultaneously as Iran funds attacks on Israel as Iranian-backed militias attack U.S. troops elsewhere in the region, and as you would think at a minimum, we'd have more members of Congress jumping up and down against this because they're using these resources to attack Americans, to kill Americans, our soldiers. This nut puts our military in the region. Why, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. What are they doing? And then funds the people who are shooting missiles at them. I mean, come on, folks. This is worse than insanity. This is treason. Joe Biden's a traitor. And then we'll get the usual, well, the sentencing is capital punishment. Doesn't have to be capital punishment. Just kick his ass out of office. It's time for a course correction. A course correction. We have an administration that funds our enemy. All tries to destroy our ally. We have an administration that opened the border wide and won't shut it, despite the American deaths and the slavery going on the southern border, despite it all. That's impeachable. If that's not impeachable, what is impeachable? If that's not Joe Biden is the quintessential case for impeaching somebody. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4 issues. It's many, many issues in which he defies the law, defies the court, undermines our national security, funds a country that's building nuclear weapons. I mean, what the hell is this? Oh, yeah, Charles Barkley's going to punch any black person who's considering voting for Trump in the face. What a dumbass. In the end, he's a dumbass. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Pure Talk believes in American values and that free should mean exactly that, free. Switch to Pure Talk today and get a free Samsung 5G smartphone. No 4-line requirement, no activation fees, just a Samsung that's built to last with a rugged screen, quick charging battery, and top-tier data security. Qualifying plans start at just $35 a month for unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot. Pure Talk will connect you to the most dependable 5G network in America for half the price of Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile. The average family saves almost $1,000 a year. So let Pure Talk's expert U.S. customer service team help you make the switch today. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin, Levin, and claim your eligibility for your free brand new Samsung 5G smartphone and start saving on wireless today. Again, go to puretalk.com/Levin to switch to my cell phone company, Pure Talk. It's an amazing thing. You have the Marxist regime in Brazil raising some questions about how they got elected. Bolsonaro, who was a Trump ally, strong supporter of Israel and of the United States. So you have this Marxist now in Brazil destroying their country and their economy, accusing of Netanyahu of being Hitler and the Israelis of being Nazis. And the day he did that, Blinken embraced him, shook his hand, made a meeting schedule, didn't go on. But he doesn't treat Brazil, that government, like it is some kind of a territory of the United States. No, great respect. You look at the government in South Africa. It's about as thoroughly anti-Semitic and Jew-hating as comes, doing the work for Iran. In the International Court, it's told every South African, any South African, if you have done any fighting on behalf of Israel, in other words, you have some Jews that may go over there, you are not allowed back into South Africa. You're out. I didn't hear a word about that from Schumer. I didn't hear a word about that from Sanders, from Biden. Nothing. Blinken? Not a word. Now here we have a man who is the president of Hungary. Prime Minister Viktor Orban has been elected. And the media in America and the Democrats in America want you to think that he's some kind of a fascist dictator strongman. No, he's not those things. He secures his border. He refuses to go along with all the other countries on all occasions in the European Union, which is very left-wing. He will not bow to the demands of the Biden administration, period. So now he's a right-wing, iron-fisted strongman. No, he's not. You know what's funny? He supports Israel, too. I met his ambassador to the United States. He came to the Shabbat dinner. He talked about his country's support for Israel. He talked about his country's support for the United States of America and the American people. But he's some kind of a authoritarian dictator. I am sick and tired of the totalitarians in the Democrat Party and our media smearing our allies, smearing the former president, smearing anybody who speaks out and against their tyranny. This guy Orban is not a dictator. The dictator's in Brazil. The dictator's in South Africa. The terrorists are in Iran, in Iraq, in Syria. They don't know the good guys from the bad guys? Of course they do. They talk about democracy. Hungary summons U.S. ambassador over lies from Biden about Orban seeking a dictatorship. Look at how they treat our real allies. As my buddy Tom Rose said earlier today to me, it's safer and more profitable to be an enemy of the United States than an ally of the United States. Hungary summoned its ambassador from the United States. This is a great guy. Great guy. On Tuesday over what Budapest termed as lies from President Biden about Prime Minister Viktor Orban supposedly seeking to become a dictator. Can you imagine? You're the elected Prime Minister of Hungary, and you've got this a-hole in the Oval Office who's trying to put his opponent in prison, who unleashes his Department of Justice and FBI against parents, sends SWAT teams to arrest people who are peacefully protesting at abortion clinics, refuses to send U.S. Marshals to protect the homes of the conservative justices who are being menaced by the Democrat Party militia, and on down the list. A diplomatic rift broke out between Budapest and Washington this week following comments by Biden, who claimed and stated flatly that Prime Minister Orban, quote, stated flatly he doesn't think democracy works and is looking for a dictatorship. They do the same thing to Trump. He said he's not going to follow the Constitution. But he does, and he did. It's you, Biden, who gives the middle finger to the court. Unbelievable, Mr. Producer. Be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. It be me, Mark Levin. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Hillary Vaughn, Peter Doocy's wife, what a wonderful couple. Well, she covers Capitol Hill from time to time for Fox. And she was trying to interview Bernie Sanders about his Marxist, socialist, hate America agenda. Just some basic questions. He wants a 32-hour work week. Can I ask you a question? Where in the Constitution does Congress have the power to set these standards? You know, it's not in there. What happened, you have several Supreme Court decisions that out of the blue gave Congress this power, because it really gave FDR the power because he demanded it. A 32-hour work week. So the borders are wide open. Our debt is through the roof. We got bills coming in, local, state, federal government. We have our own bills to pay. They propose massive, crushing taxes on businesses large and small, so they won't be able to expand or hire people. In fact, they'll have to fire people. They have all kinds of things they want to do parental, family, 30 days off, 3 months off, the whole schmear. And they want to legislate it all from Washington, D.C. because it's nothing to them. They get votes. Get votes. Economic reality is of no consequence whatsoever. And if something goes wrong, what do? They blame the victims, the very people who they're squeezing. I've said before, if you kill the golden goose, you don't get golden eggs, do you? No, you don't. Capitalism is a hell of a system. It's imperfect, but it's the most perfect. And it's not an imperfect system per se. It's that people are imperfect. That's why it's the best system. To have fewer and fewer imperfect people in Washington, D.C. who have literally no experience running anything except their mouths, run every sector of our economy, and run it right down to the local level, run it right down into the little business, run it right down into the employee who handles, the files on row 7. Well, that's a disaster. That causes poverty, causes destruction. It'd be amazing if Washington could just manage itself, but it can't. So it uses the law to expand its power and to crush any opposition. That's what it does. So Bernie Sanders has a lot of ideas. They're not new. These are Marxist, socialist ideas. Shorten the work week, but get paid the same amount. A centralized healthcare system. Oh, that'll be fantastic. Those of you who have experienced massive bureaucracies. I'm having heart trouble. Okay, see you in 2 months. That's exactly what happens in Britain. It's what happens in Britain. And not just Britain, France, all the other great paradise medical systems out there. We're very spoiled about this. In fact, I was at my local pharmacy not that long ago, and I had to take 5 different prescriptions with me. Came to a total of like $100, maybe $110. That's fantastic. Somebody had to invent these things and produce them. It doesn't grow on trees. Well, actually, some of it does, but you know what I mean. So I'm watching a lady. She's not poor. She doesn't look poor. Her basket's pretty full. I might add, doesn't look like she's starving, quite the opposite. And she has to pay something like $75 for like 7 or 8 drugs, Mr. Producer. And she's mouthing off to the pharmacist. I'm thinking to myself, good God. People piss away that kind of money for nothing. There's one drug I take. No, not that one. That's covered by my insurance. I'm very lucky that it is. Otherwise, it would be $1,200 a month, Mr. Producer. It's a diabetes drug. Now I have diabetes. You believe that? It's a diabetes drug. So it's $1,200 a month. The insurance covers it. You know what it is now? $100 a month. And you take this needle once a week. Self-done, Which means it's $25 a shot. How can you beat that? And the lady who's been so browbeaten by a repulsive group of customers over the years, is that okay? It's $100 a month. I said, is it okay? That means it's $25 a week. Of course it's okay. I'm just lucky we're in the United States of America where I can get this. Imagine if I were in the paradise called Communist China, or the paradise called North Korea, the paradise called Cuba, or the paradise called Venezuela. Imagine. Nothing. Zero. Yeah, that's the way it seems to go. So Bernie Sanders says a 32-hour week for everybody. So what would that do to some companies? He has no idea. He could care less. He says, look, Americans work too hard and they work too long. Well, if you don't want to work hard and don't work long, then don't keep that job. But look at the psychology of this whole thing. They attack Americans. They brutalize taxpayers. They hire 87,000 new agents to chase us. They regulate us. They redistribute what we earn, give it to illegal aliens, and on and on and on. And then they pretend to look out for a 32-hour week. Yeah, that'd be great. Who's going to run the federal government? What? Every time, if the government shuts down for a minute, it's the sky's going to fall. Yeah, we have more federal holidays than ever before. That's, more Mondays or Fridays off. That would be the federal government. I don't get them, but you know what I mean. And now 32-hour work days. Who's going to run the government? That's all they care about. So when you're an ideologue, a Marxist ideologue, and you don't know how things are produced, you don't know how things get from A to B, you don't know how complicated it is to acquire materials at a price that you can use them and make a profit, you don't know anything. You don't know how an egg gets to a restaurant. You don't know how to put oil in your engine. You don't know how to do anything. And yet you can manage everything. You can manage the world. So I've said before, how is it that you get elected to the Senate from Vermont? You've never done a damn thing in your life in the private sector. You've never invented anything, created anything. You never run a cash register. Nothing. But you can run everything. Oil companies, steel companies, coal companies, commercial fisheries, trucking companies. You know everything. You can run everything. No, he doesn't. When you base your decisions on an ideology that empowers you more to base more of your decisions, that take that authority away from the individual, you're destroying the golden goose. Anyway, let's hear this attempt at an interview by Hillary Vaughn and see how defensive Bernie Sanders gets. He's being asked a question by a young lady. She's trying to press him on the points. He talks over, and then what you don't see, because it's radio, is he abruptly walks away. Did you see that, Mr. Producer? Turns around and walks away. He always sounds to me like he's having a bowel movement. This Bernie Sanders. Always sounds to me like he's having a bowel movement. Always looks to me like he's having a bowel movement. Very difficult one. Or he's sitting on a cucumber by accident. Cut 9, go.
Can I talk to you about the 32-hour work week? It seems like Fox Business. Yeah. It seems like Democrats want businesses to be taxed more, pay their workers.
Really? Is that what you think?
pay their workers.
Excuse me.
I didn't get to ask a question.
Okay, thank you.
Senator,
you want to hold it? Okay. We held a hearing on a 32-hour work week because what we have seen is that over the last 50 years, despite a huge increase in worker productivity, almost all of the wealth...
There's not a huge increase in all worker productivity because there's more and more people in the public dole. We call it welfare. But what does that have to do with anything? Nothing. Go ahead.
While 60% of the people are living paycheck to paycheck.
Oh, why are they living paycheck to paycheck, Mr. Inflation? Why are they living paycheck to paycheck? They'll tell you why. They can't afford things anymore. Not because people are greedy, but because you bastards won't stop spending money and driving up the cost of everything. You decrease the value of the paper money, the dollar, while you increase the cost of products. That's what happens when you jerks interfere in the economy. Go ahead.
We work the longest hours of any people in the industrialized.
You don't work long hours at all. You sit on your fat ass up there, reading your Communist Manifesto over and over and over and over again. Do you guys put in 40 hours a week? Of course you don't. That's why you're there on Capitol Hill. Go ahead.
I think it's time for a shortened work week.
Could I ask you a question about that? It seems like Democrats want businesses to be taxed more,
pay
their workers more, lower prices, and now pay people not to work.
Stop. Notice how he won't let her speak. He's a good little Marxist. She's asking a very intelligent question. And she's trying to get it out as fast as she can because she knows he's going to run. He's going to run. And she makes all the sense in the world. She understands the economy far more than any Marxist, including that one. What she's saying is they have to pay their workers more, lower prices. Now, pay people not to work? How are businesses going to survive that? That's the question. How are businesses going to survive all those proposals? Go ahead.
Would like to see.
How are businesses going to survive that? That's the question. How can businesses survive all of those proposals?
When Mr. Bezos pays
Mr. Bezos has nothing to do with it, dumbass. The billionaires have nothing to do with it. The poorest people in the country have nothing to do about it. We're talking about public policy. What is the best policy to create the most prosperity in the country? Not what is the best policy to redistribute wealth based on what Bernie Sanders thinks needs to be done, but using the power of government to steal property, to steal money, and thereby destroy industries and destroy jobs. There's Mr. Bezos, who I detest, who owns the Washington Compost. What does he have to do with anything? This class warfare crap. He wants your eyes to glaze over. He wants you to be to just follow his ideology, click your heels, walk by. Mr. Bezos, billionaires, don't pay taxes. They don't pay taxes. But we do. I do. Through the teeth. And whether Mr. Bezos pays taxes or not isn't going to change the Internal Revenue Code one damn bit. When I go to my accountant, when all of you pay your taxes, they don't say, what does Mr. Bezos pay? They say, here's what you owe. And they make it like, oh, well, if Mr. Bezos would pay his fair share, then we wouldn't have to do all these things. Yes, we would. Mr. Bezos, they want him to pay taxes so they can steal more money and redistribute it to their left-wing friends or illegal aliens or 1,001 other ideas. Don't fall for this class warfare crap. It simply doesn't matter. You know, let me do this. I talked about ESPN. Let's talk about sports for 2 seconds. Very dangerous for me. What motivates an athlete? What motivates an athlete? Number one, to be the very best they can. They want to be in the record books. They want to be recognized. They want fan support. They want to be liked. Good. Good. But why do they want to be the best they can? What is the other reason, Mr. Producer? They want to make as much money as they can. And why shouldn't they? Why shouldn't they? They apply their brains. They apply their brawn. They're blessed. They want to use the assets that they have to their fullest potential. That's professionalism. That's what you do in a capitalist society. Whether you're on a football field, a basketball court, whether you're running a business, whomever you are, whatever you are. You start saying things like everybody's going to get paid the same or you're going to pay a lot more taxes because it's fair that way. You disincentivize people. You don't pay them for their value. You don't pay them for their worth. That's what you do. It's counterintuitive. It's anti-human nature. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
There's something very weird about this case in Manhattan brought by the tub of lard. Can't even remember his name, Mr. Producer. Doesn't really matter. The tub of lard DA. Bragg. Manhattan prosecutors not opposed to delay in hush money case against Donald Trump. Hush money. And this is by ABC News. Now, ABC News, have you ever entered into a non-disclosure agreement with any employee? Do you call that hush money? Every business, major business or corporation, even middle-sized, even smaller ones on many occasions, enter into non-disclosure agreements. Many divorced couples enter into non-disclosure agreements. Basically, it says, don't trash me. I'm paying you money. I'm paying you money to shut up. Probably 10,000, 50,000 of these are done, 10,000 a day, maybe 100,000 a week across the country by all these media organizations that keep calling this hush money. And by some of the reporters that call it hush money. They're called non-disclosure agreements, not hush money. Makes it sound like a criminal mob enterprise. Oh, you paid her hush money? Yeah. My God. Hush money? Yes. No, non-disclosure agreement. But listen to this. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office today said it is not opposed to delaying the start of its criminal trial against Donald Trump, citing newly disclosed evidence from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan. Wait a minute. How's a lawyer go, wait a minute, this has been going on a while. What do you mean newly disclosed information from the U.S. Attorney's Office? You got documents from the U.S. Attorney's Office? Trump's first criminal trial is supposed to start March 25 with jury selection. But lawyers are expecting a trove of records to be produced next week by federal prosecutors who investigated the same hush money payments at the center of the case years ago. Let me get this straight. The U.S. attorney had documents that now the DA thinks are relevant, and the U.S. attorney's office only turned them over a couple of days ago, maybe a day ago? What were they trying to do, withhold them from the defense and now rush it through? I'll give them 30 more days. Apparently there's 31,000 pages of additional records. More when I return.
The Mark Levin Show, live and national at 877-381-3811.
So let's listen to this. This is the DA's office in Manhattan. Specifically yesterday, the United States Attorney's Office produced approximately 31,000 pages of additional records and represented that there will be another production of documents by next week. He says, based on our initial review of yesterday's production, those records appear to contain materials related to the subject matter of this case, including materials that the people requested from the U.S. Attorney more than a year ago and that the U.S. Attorney previously declined to provide. So let me get this straight. They requested material from the U.S. Attorney's Office, and now, at the 11th hour, right before the scheduled March 25 trial, they say, oh, by the way, we have these 31,000 pages, and next week we're going to give you more. My cynical view, which tends to be correct when dealing with these thugs, is that this was done on purpose, making it much more difficult for the president's lawyers to have the time to go through the material, and it seems to be worn out because Bragg has said to the judge, we don't object to having 30 more days. And Trump's lawyers said, we need a longer postponement. We got to go through all this stuff. We need up to 90 days. But Bragg says that's not necessary. Of course it's not necessary when you're doing a Salem witch trial or a French Revolution off with your head guillotine trial. But listen to what was that. All of a sudden, they say, oh, we have the documents. We have 31,000 pages. And by the way, next week, we're going to give you more. Knowing full well it's the 11th hour. And then Bragg comes back and says, yeah, they don't need more than 30 days. 30 days? There's more documents coming out next week. You don't even know how many pages there are. Now, this isn't the way the justice system is supposed to work, America, now is it? But it's Donald Trump. There is no justice system. There is no justice system, but they have Democrat judges. Judge Juan Merchan is one of them. So he has to rule on the request, and it remains unclear when that'll happen. Newly disclosed evidence relates to Michael Cohen. Remember him? The crook, the felon who lost his law degree? Well, he'd be a good witness. Trump's former fixer, an attorney, they write, who pleaded guilty and served time for lying to Congress. Oh, that's a great witness for the government. Won't matter. It's a Democrat jury. That's all they know. That's all they care. They can indict Trump for anything. They just need one count to get him convicted. That's their view. The defense has argued allowing Cohen to testify in the hush money case. Once again, ABC News, you have signed non-disclosure agreements. So from now on, we're going to say that ABC News, the corporation that has signed endless numbers of hush money deals, okay, you want that? We'll do that. Would amount to suborning perjury. So what Trump's lawyers are correctly saying, oh, this guy is a convicted liar. He went to prison. He went to prison. He's going to testify now in the case? And so that's that. Yes, because every one of these is intended to get something in front of a Democrat jury that will convict Trump of anything. Of anything. Who do we have on the phone there, Mr. Producer? I haven't been able to open the call screen right now. Yep. KXNT? Is that what KNXT? KXNT? Just kidding, folks. All right, Las Vegas, Nevada, JD, how are you, sir?
Mark, thank you very much for your valuable time. I appreciate it. I wanted to make you aware of what has happened.
You want to know the truth? I've got nowhere to go, but go right ahead.
UNLV, the Harvard of the West, had a Jewish professor to talk about science last week, probably booked a year ago, and he was harassed and chased off stage by Hamas and Palestinian supporters in about 15 minutes. The college president and the border regions have said nothing about these students that have chased this professor off the stage, and there has been no investigation as to what's going to happen with these guys that did this. And I thought you might like to know how bad it is here in Las Vegas at UNLV, better known as a basketball school.
Better known as UNLV, and anybody outside of Nevada doesn't care, just to be honest. Now, here's the thing. This is happening in every corner of America, in fact, every corner of the planet. It's the 1930s. And so when you have a Senate Majority Leader stand up and trash the only homeland of the Jews when he represents the biggest Jewish population in New York, it tells you what's going on in this country. That you actually have powerful Jewish figures who are throwing in with the anti-Semites, either out of fear or out of power. You can see it with billionaires. You can see it all over the place. You see it in the media. And that's what's happening here. These are little crystal knocks taking place. One college and university after another, one grocery store after another, in one street after another, these little crystal knocks taking place. Joe Biden hasn't said a word about it. In fact, he pours fuel on the fire by the way he talks about Netanyahu and Israel and all the rest, and same with the other lowlives in his party. That is what's taking place in this country. It is frightening. It should be frightening for everybody, including non-Jews, because in the end, when tyranny swirls around, it engulfs everybody. Everybody. All right, my friend, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. All right, Richie, who's next? WPHT, Ken, Lindenwold, New Jersey. Go right ahead, please.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for taking my call. I've never called a radio show before, but
don't be nervous.
I heard something last week on the State of the Union address that I thought was significant, but I haven't heard anybody talk about it. Right after our president mispronounced Lincoln Riley's name, he said all of the immigrants that come over the border are put there by smugglers who charge them $8,000 to come over. Now, I haven't heard anybody really jump on that.
I don't remember that. He said so much. I didn't pick up on it.
Absolutely there. I DVR'd it and I played it this morning.
No, I believe you. I just didn't catch it at the time. So what do you think of that?
I want to know, has there ever been a president ever that bragged about helping a criminal organization with his policy?
He is funding the Mexican drug cartels. They're richer than ever. He's funding the communist Chinese with his EV subsidies. He's directly funding Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis with the amounts of money that he's pouring in by the billions to Iran. He's funding our enemies. He's given more money to Iran now than our country has given to Ukraine. I want people to understand that directly and indirectly. He has shoveled more money into Iran than he has into Ukraine, and by 50 times more than Israel, which is now running out of munitions. And really, the Republicans in the House, and at least some in the Senate, need to start asking questions about this if they're slow-walking material to the Israelis as part of their pincer movement to destroy the government of Israel, to destroy the country of Israel, and to empower the Palestinian terrorists. That is what's going on. That's what the Democrat Party stands for. They're now wide in the open. They've come out of the closet. Jew, Gentile. They've made it abundantly clear in the Democrat Party where they stand. Thank you for your call, my friend. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
We have two fantastic Life, Liberty, and Levin programs this weekend. And I hope you'll set your DVR Saturday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, just in case you're not home, something comes up, you forget, whatever. Of course, I love it when you watch it live. That's always a great thing, too. But two fantastic shows. We have first Congressman who's been handling the January 6th committee. His name is Loudermilk. He's terrific. We do an in-depth discussion there. We have Jesse Waters on. I think for the first time, he and I have an absolute blast. He's got a fantastic new book. It really is. I've read it. And I want to discuss that with you, too. And most of all is the opening statement. As you folks know, I spent a long time researching these things. And I don't read, screens and that sort of thing. And I don't have people write them for me. I do it all. I'm a handyman. Anyway, I know you're going to love it. Sunday, we have two great guests, too. We have Jim Trusty, fantastic lawyer. And we also have the professor from the University of Pennsylvania to talk about the numbers the Democrats and the media keep using about civilian deaths, and a fantastic opening there. So the opening on Saturday will be my proposition that the Democrat Party is in fact a totalitarian party. And my opening on Saturday will be all about the treatment of Donald Trump. The second half will be Sunday, my opening statement, demonstrating yet again that the Democrat Party is a totalitarian party in their treatment of Benjamin Netanyahu. And so you can see the Democrat Party is not interested in elections. They're interested in destroying them. They only like elections when they like the outcome. They want to fundamentally transform America into some kind of a Marxist hellhole, and they want to do the same to Israel and turn it over to Palestinian terrorists, because they know damn well what would happen. They're on a suicide mission, both in the United States and in Israel, and I'm going to prove it. So please set your DVRs, 8 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday. I know you're going to love these programs. What I have left here, Mr. Producer, for you, anything? That's it? Let's take a few more calls. I've been trying to get more calls in because they've been very good. Let's go to Ken Howell, Michigan. WJR. Ken, how are you?
Hi, is it really Jim from Howell, Michigan?
I don't know. What's your name?
My name's Jim.
Not tonight. It's Ken.
From Howell, Michigan. From JR.
Yes, sir.
I'm listening to you on JR.
Thank you. Yeah, we love JR. Go right ahead, my friend.
Okay. I just want to thank you for all the constitutional wisdom that you've passed on to me and, the people who listen to you. But my question is about you pointed out some of these violations of the precedents and all these legalities that are being bypassed in order to get to Trump. Like violation, as far as I'm concerned, to be tried by a jury of his peers.
I agree.
Constitutional precedents and old laws have been twisted beyond belief.
You're right.
So my question is really, is there some way that the Supreme Court could look at all this crap and just say, we're going to take this up on our own?
No, the court can't. The court does not have the power to do that, number one. Number two, the court does have the power to rule in ways that uphold our justice system. I don't say the law. I say our justice system. And to use that process by issuing their opinions and giving directives to the lower courts. Now, that said, we have some serious problems on the Supreme Court with some of these people. So until all the members of the Supreme Court take their job as serious arbiters of fact who apply the Constitution, it can't be fixed and it won't be fixed. And Biden is appointing more and more radical leftists. You know, my first book was called Men in Black, about the Supreme Court. And one of the things I wrote in there was, how do these judges and justices expect us to respect their rulings if they don't respect the Constitution themselves? The Constitution is bigger, more important by far, been around longer than any judge or justice. So why is it that when a judge or justice at any level of government issues an opinion, you better comply with it or else? But when they issue an opinion that has no connection. You have disagreements when people issue opinions, but no connection to the actual Constitution itself. Why are we supposed to respect judges, respect their opinions, follow their orders, if the basic law is turned on its head and disrespected? I talked about this at great length over the weekend and last weekend, and I noticed that it was picked up by the Wall Street Journal, without attribution, of course, and they had a columnist there that also said, subsequently, that the public are no longer going to respect the law, that this lawfare is destroying the law. Welcome to the crowd, Daniel. Wall Street Journal, we've been saying that here over and over and over again. And we said it again over the weekend, and we even put a big dark line under it. Thank you for your call, my friend. Sure his name's not Ken? I don't know. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, freedom fighters all over the world, our brothers and sisters in Ukraine, and our brothers and sisters in Israel. We have your back whether Schumer does or not. And all of you great patriots, I can't thank you enough. And I'll see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening.